When do you know if your company is ready to scale? That is the question that we're going to answer in this week's CarCast. Now, you're probably noticing I'm not in my usual environment here, and that's because I'm in Europe meeting customers, partners, and analysts, and I'm doing this from a car in Europe. So there you go. You've got your first European CarCast from a European car, and if you're wondering, yes, it is a French car. I'm inside a Renault. All right, so lots to cover this week. Before we answer the question du jour, I want to point you to a few people you should know and follow. My first one is the VP and Head of Data at Swarovski, Fabrizio Antonelli. He and I finally met in person this week. About a year ago, if you remember, we talked about the work his team does in predictive analytics for the organization. We talked about machine learning this past week, talked about data and analytics in details. He's going to share a lot more in the community, so this is someone you're going to want to know and follow. My second one is Thomas Mayer at Cartier. He and I spent a great amount of time together when I was in Geneva just a few days ago, and this is a chief data officer with an exceptional vision for data engineering, someone who's on a mission to make machine learning approachable and useful to all employees and customers. You are going to want to follow him as well. All right, so question du jour. What is the deal with understanding scale? So if this week you only have time for one article, take a look at Stage 2 Capital. JPO breaks down the flaws of the traditional LTV and CAC calculation that most of us use to assess the ability of a company to scale. Now, the article is very detailed, lots of explanations. It'll help you kind of diagnose the status of your company because everything's about timing here. And there's a lot in there, but there's actually 3 key points I'm going to try and simplify and break down for you. The first one, LTV and CAC typically is calculated through 3 variables: average revenue per customer, churn, and CAC, of course, which are based in point in time. And they don't really take care of when customer behaviors change, and as they change over time. It's probably worse because it averages behaviors, which is not beneficial to a company as you're trying to scale, particularly if you're in early and mid stage. Not a lot is fixed, as JPO is really kind of highlighting. What is not fixed? Well, your ideal customer profile, you're really trying to figure it out. Your pricing and packaging, you're making changes to your GTM motion. And as your business change and the business motion in the market are changes for such as land and expand, but also more and more consumption-based pricing, these variables are going to introduce a lot of changes. So if you simplify it down to these 3 variables into one single number that is not taking care of this type of change and averages it out for you, you lose the ability to have granular understanding. That's really kind of the main point of the article. What he's suggesting is that instead you should take a look at monthly customer cohorts so you can track sales efficiency and assess customer value over time in these cohorts. So he says calculate CAC per cohort, measure how long each cohort takes to break even on CAC. And this is something he calls the cohort customer acquisition cost payback equation. I know it's a mouthful, but there's a lot in the blog that I would really suggest you take a look at because it will help you identify where are you in the phase of evolution, what should you be looking at. And what's great about his blog, he also gives you a way to think about benchmarking based on if you're going after mid-market or enterprise types of customers. So hopefully you'll find this blog really useful if you're trying to build, scale a team and a company. But there's a lot more work in the community for this. In fact, in January, I wrote this blog called Building a Playbook for Scale that was based on this book. I don't know if you remember this, The Business Model Generation, a great book. And guess what? The authors are actually based in Switzerland. So this week I had the opportunity to meet them, meet one of them. Yves came to visit me in Geneva and actually signed this book for me and give me a copy of his next book. So I really want to suggest that you take a look at these books. They provide a great set of frameworks and set of tools so you can figure out where are you in your phase and how do you scale, how do you build a repeatable business model for your company. So I'm going to put all these links for you down here so you can easily find them. I couldn't recommend Yves' work and his team's work on building and scaling companies of all types. So make sure to take a look at those. I hope this week we're going to have the opportunity to meet. I will be in Paris at the beginning of the week, then in London, and of course I'll be heading out to Florida for the Gartner Data and Analytics Summit. I'll put more posts on that too, so you can identify places where we can meet in person. In the meantime, I hope this was useful for you. I hope you have a great week. I will see you next week.